Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Safa's Unscripted, episode 107. Crazy, crazy, crazy. As you can see, just me and Casual Bias today. Brett might join us halfway through. He has been ill, not feeling very good. So me and Casual are going to... Yeah, he had a pukey, as he likes to call it. But yeah, me and Casual will guide the ship today. And interesting topic. Well, first of all, please remember to like, share, subscribe. We really appreciate the growth in this channel and all the interactions. And before we get into the topic, Casual, how are you doing?
All good, all good. Excited. We finally get back into the swing of things with rugby next weekend. It feels like we haven't seen some rugby in forever. That's the thing. Like, we're so used to seeing rugby all year round. Now we have a 2-week break. It feels like it's taken a solid sabbatical. So we're talking the upcoming Rugby Championship, which makes me so happy. So happy.
Yeah, so today we're just kind of going to, you could say, build some hype, but we just want to have a chat about we'll talk a lot about South Africa, but also include the likes of Argentina, the All Blacks, and Australia in the conversation. Because as we know, I think this is a pretty important Rugby Championship for the Springboks. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yeah, it's massive. It is massive. Obviously for other nations as well, but with the fact that we are South Africans, we've always had that little caveat over or behind our World Cup wins. It's like, well, we're only a World Cup team because we struggle to win the Rugby Championship. And at times you could say, yeah, it's because South Africa we rotated or we didn't focus too much on it. But also the All Blacks has always been better than us. They've smashed us in the Rugby Championship multiple times. And it's time for us to step up and actually say, okay, we've won 2 World Cups. The previous time, I think we won 1 Rugby Championship and a British and Irish Lions in between it. I would love for us to go for the next 4 years, see if we can be the dominating force in the Rugby Championship. Now, I'm not taking anything away from the other teams, but I would love for us to push for a Rugby Championship victory where we also still build our squad for the next World Cup, because we can't go every World Cup and say we're building for the next World Cup. At some point, we have to say, let's get some silverware in between. And I want us to at least push and see if we can get 2 or 3 Rugby Championships, which makes us the dominating force in the Rugby Championship leading up into a World Cup. That is my dream that I aspire to as a South African fan.
Yes, so that's why I wanted to bring in this conversation or this question. Basically, like, for the Springboks for this Rugby Championship, is your expectations for them to win it? Like, that is what you fully expect?
You could say so, and it could come across a bit cocky, but I think it's finally time for us to go ahead and push it. And we've never had a better chance, I would say, to winning a Rugby Championship than now, because we're not playing in Auckland. Everyone always loses in Auckland. Now, obviously, we struggle in Australia, but this is finally our chance to go ahead and say, listen, we are a better team than Australia, and we should beat them. There is this hoodoo over us in terms of we struggle to win in Brisbane, but we finally get the opportunity to go ahead and prove ourselves and beat Australia in Australia. I think the previous time we played in Australia, we got 1 victory there. I want us to go ahead, get 2 victories there, finally beat the All Blacks twice in a row, because I can't remember the last time that we did that. And obviously, the expectation is that we beat Argentina. So I'm not writing any of those teams off. I think Australia's going to be a lot better than expected, and I think the All Blacks will find their feet. They've already beaten a formidable English team, whether people like it or not. So the expectation or the standards that I've set for this one is that we have to go out. Double World Cup winning team has to go and win a Rugby Championship, at least the first year after the World Cup, seeing that we still kind of have the same team. So that is kind of my expectation. I want us and I need us to win this Rugby Championship.
I think it's important now for us to kind of, as a nation, also maybe be a bit more like critical, in the sense that, you know, we want to start winning other silverware as well. I mean, like you said, many other nations see us as a World Cup team, when, you know, we see ourselves as the best in the world. So I think now is a big thing to prove we are a serious force, and it's not just a World Cup thing. I think we have to win this Rugby Championship. Like, there is no negotiation.
Especially when we did predictions at the start of the year, and I know it was a massive thing that we a massive expectation that we put on the Springboks. But we said if there was ever a year for the Springboks to really go unbeaten, right? It's the confidence that you take from the World Cup. It would be 2024. And obviously the Irish shut us up with that one, so we can't go unbeaten anymore. But the fact that we had that expectation, yeah, we had one loss, right? And it's against the great Irish team. They deserve to win that game. But we're not all of a sudden going to drop it and say, okay, we're not even winning the rugby championship. We're not even winning this. We're not even going to beat that team. Like that one loss has not all of a sudden made that, okay, now I'm doubting this team. I want to be harsh or critical on the team, but it's only because we have such good expectations. Like that's the thing with when you win the Rugby World Cup, you have to deal with the expectations that come with it now. So with the standards that we set out at the start of the year, we need to go ahead and actually push for this rugby championship. And I know people always say, oh, but Rassie knows what he's doing and whatever. I don't care. I don't want to build for the next World Cup, right? I am not happy if Rassie has a 64% win record. Like that is not good enough. We need to start pushing like the All Blacks did in that 2007 till 2015 era, where we get at least 80% record, or at least 75 to 80% record. That's kind of what I want from the Springboks, to be a formidable force throughout. A tough team to beat.
Yeah. So it's crazy you bring up like building for the next World Cup, and that's not necessarily what you want to see. But realistically, we know there is going to be some experimentation coming in from Rassie, because there are players that won't be able to play the next World Cup. So coming from your side, which games would you like to see Rassie stick with what he knows and knows what will work in this rugby championship? And which games would you like to maybe see Grant and Sasha get a start at 9 and 10, and Steenekamp starts over Ox and Ox comes off the bench, that type of thing? Yeah. Which games would you prefer to see either one?
I don't want to see any guys that won't be considered for future for the Springboks play in this rugby championship. If we are going to rotate, I don't want to see fully rotated teams necessarily. I want it, unless it's maybe Argentina, maybe, but I don't want to see Argentina as a walkover victory. If you want to play the likes of Andre Estres and Lukania Arm together, there you go. You can play them against Argentina, right? But if we're playing Grant and Sasha, I want them to play in the main team. I want to see them. We can play them against the All Blacks, I don't care, because we still got the main foundation there. We want to get them bled into the system. I don't want to. I'm just going to use an example. Let's say, who can I use? Evan Roos. Let's say Evan Roos is not, okay, well, he's not even in the squad, but you get what I mean. So I don't want to see Evan Roos play if he's not going to have a future for the Springboks. I don't want to see guys play that we know, okay, well, they're probably not going to play for the Springboks. So if you bring a Kanan Moody in and whatever, then fine, right? But I don't really want to see a lot of experimentation, seeing that it's also a new system. I want to see us really build and know the system inside out. We know what our starting lineup is. We kind of know what the bench is. And then you switch 1, 2, or 3 players out every now and again. So if I was to rotate, maybe one game in Australia and one or both games maybe against Argentina. But I would still want almost full strength South African team. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
How about yourself?
Yeah, like the thing is, like I agree with you. I don't want to see people coming in that won't necessarily. This is why I have quite an issue with Murat, for example, right? They might see him as the future, but I just personally don't seeing it work out. I don't see him being the future number 4 for the Springboks, like, if you get what I'm saying. So this is why, like, Murat just, he can be a good player, but I just think that there's so much better out there. And then also, like, if you look at the 8 jersey, right, there's Jasper Wiese, Ulrich Lowe, Cameron Hanekom, obviously not in yet, and Ivan Roos. And, like, if you look at now, we have Ulrich in instead of Ivan. When you say, do you see a future for Ulrich in the Springboks, like, realistically? Do you see any kind of future? Because it's so stacked there, you know?
Not necessarily. The age isn't... How old is he?
He's young. I think he's like mid-20s or somewhere there.
Maybe he has a future, but the issue is with the young players coming through, they're even younger and they've got the experience to kind of help them out. So for instance, like, let's say Dwayne goes out and now it's Jasper's time to take over, right? Jasper's going to be there for a long time. Elrich is not taking Jasper's spot, and if Jasper isn't there, it has to be Evan Roos. This is a good example. I don't want to see all the games all of a sudden started by Kwagga Smith. We know he's not going to be the 8. It's tried, it's tested. He's not the starter. He's so good from the bench. I don't want us to experiment like that. I want us to give young guys game time that has a future. I want to see Sasha play a lot of game time, and I want to see Grant Williams have a lot of game time. And I want to work on that combination style time. I want to see Ben Jason Dixon get a lot of game time. So that's kind of the thing. So do I see a massive future for Elrich? No. Elrich Low? No. But I think of the forwards, he might be like that Elton Yankees, where it's like if the main guys can't be there, he's automatically first choice of the reserves.
Yeah, which is what the reason. Yeah, the reason I bring it up is because, like, for instance, he is the guy that a lot of people at the moment are saying with the squad we have, we start with, because obviously Jasper's missing both Australian games.
Yeah, I play Elrich then. Yeah,
you play Elrich and bring Kwagga off the bench. Are you in agreement?
Correct. Yeah, that's what I would go for. I've even heard some people say we might go with Pieter-Steph du Toit at 8, but I would not.
What? No way. No.
Currently, he's played a bit of 8 in that 8 jersey in Japan or something like that. But I would not funk it up like that. Like, seriously.
Yeah, definitely. I think Elrich can definitely do a role at 8. Not saying he's the best option at 8, but I think he could do a good job. Yep. I mean, he grinds for the balls.
He probably do the job,
Yeah. So, look, I think if we're realistic with ourselves, it's not off. We've never actually gone into a rugby championship where we've, dominated it. We've won every single game type thing. So, I sat and I thought, and I was like, realistically, there's a chance we win. I mean, we lose one game in this rugby championship. I think there is a chance. And I personally think that would come, and it sounds crazy, but I think that loss, and it can only come in Australia. And the reason I say that is because I can see the All Blacks beating the Aussies twice. I can even see the Aussies slipping up in Argentina because they are playing their set. So I think if a loss has to come, it has to come against Australia, and then we have to do the double again, or at least win one against Australia and do double against New Zealand, double against Argentina. Obviously, we'd like to go unbeaten, but we need to think about these things. Would you agree Australia is the place to lose if we do?
Yeah, I've said it before. I think I've said it on the podcast as well. Like, obviously, the All Blacks are a lot better than the Wallabies, but I more expect us to lose or slip up against the Wallabies at the moment. I can see how we just maybe take them for granted. So it is so vital for us to get off to an important start. We've lost our game against Ireland. Maybe that was like a wake-up call for us to say, listen, okay, we cannot play like that. We need to be hungry every single game. We went against Portugal. We got our victory, even though most of those guys didn't play, and it's just Portugal. That's a confidence booster. But I think the fact that Australia beat Wales, and you looked at the performances, and it wasn't bad at all. Like, Australia played some good rugby. I think that kind of made the Boks more hungry for the Wallabies instead of just like seeing them as this unthreatening team or whatever. I think that actually told the Springboks, okay, listen, we lost against Ireland, and the Wallabies just beat Wales that finally looked a bit better. And they actually looked good as well. So we know we can't write off the Wallabies. And I'm sure the Springboks already know about this issue that we always lose in Australia. And they will want to swing the tide when it comes to that. So
Yeah. No, obviously, we'd love to see 100% win rate in this rugby championship. I mean, that would really stamp authority of where we are as a team. But like, just going off the past, you think I've seen a Springbok team slip up here and there because they're not quite switched on in down under in Australia. So that's the only reason I ask that is just because I think if we lose to the All Blacks, that's when it gets a bit tricky, because I don't see them losing anywhere else, if that makes sense. Whereas I know the Aussies would lose.
Fully agree. Yeah. I wouldn't even be surprised if the Springboks somehow slipped up in South Africa against Argentina. Like, I feel like we beat Argentina there. But then, for some reason, when they play in South Africa, do you remember that game that we won by 1 point? That was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, somehow we always play bad against Argentina. I've got a question for you, right?
Yeah.
Who is the favorite going into the Rugby Championship?
I think it has to be us. We have to be really critical of ourselves. We won the Rugby World Cup. We've beaten the All Blacks twice. We beat them at Twickenham, and then in the World Cup finals. That's 2
and now
wins
we're
in a
playing
row.
them twice in South Africa.
Yeah, so I do think we are, with the games we've been given, I think we are the favourites. And the fact that we are World Cup winners, you have to hold yourself accountable. So there's no hiding.
South Africa never likes being the favourites. That's the issue, right?
Yeah. So, like, I think this is now time for them to step up, you know? Like, this is now time for them to go, okay, we're no longer the underdogs per se. Because even in this past World Cup, I mean, a lot of people thought Irish and the French were the favourites to win that, because going into it, they were superb. And then, you know, obviously Southern Hemisphere.
Rightfully so. They were the favourites. I mean, they had the winning records. They beat the South like multiple occasions, although it was all in the North. But yeah,
but still, I think they definitely were favourites for a reason. But now going into this, we have to hold ourselves accountable. Like I said, it's like you can't always be the underdog. You know, you have to.
Yeah, at some point you have to embrace. You have to embrace what you've accomplished, and you have to take it a step further. As I said at the start, it's tiring being world champions, but then only having 1 year of joy in between the next 4 coming into the World Cup, and it's always against New Zealand, and somehow we find a way to lose against Australia, and it's just like this inspiring team needs to keep on inspiring us. Okay, a rugby championship goes a long way. Like when we talk about like the greatest scrum halves, for instance, of all time, we say Aaron Smith, and we want to mention Fourie du Preez, but Aaron Smith has got like 10 times his amount of rugby championships. Well, it's time that when we talk about our own boys and we talk about silverware, we can actually compete against the All Blacks, because now we've got more World Cups, but they played like 4 or 5 extras in everything else. So
because like people still say no, New Zealand's the greatest rugby nation ever, and it's because of that. You know, it's because they constantly win.
They are.
It's true. Like, I understand World Cups are important and we have the most, but to win things in between is also just as important, because it shows that you staying consistent, if you know what I'm saying. So, but anyways, I think.
I mean, we've won the World Cup 4 times, and they've won the World Cup 3 times. So you can get to the conclusion where it's like South Africa's the best World Cup team. But what happens in between those 4 years is also very, very important. Like, we can't act like the World Cup is the end-all and be-all. Like, it's massive. Like, that's the biggest accomplishment. But winning the biggest accomplishment the whole time is not everything. Like, you're playing against the other team that's in your competition, right? That's literally your competition for the best in the world, and they keep beating you every single year. So it's time to switch it up. We need to get that rugby championship.
Yeah, and like what we can't afford to do, because it happened the last time New Zealand played 2 games together. We beat them in Port Elizabeth, and everything was high. It was looking good. And then we lost to them at Ellis Park the week after. And I was like, you can't do that. You know, you've got to be consistent. Like, it is the All Blacks, I get it. But
are we playing them in Ellis Park again?
Yeah, so Ellis Park first, then Cape Town the next week.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, if I'm not mistaken, I think someone told me, like, we don't have the greatest record against the All Blacks at Ellis Park.
Yeah, I know 2 victories. I know the one in '95, obviously, and then I know of the one, it's when Lambie kicked the winning kick. I can't remember what year it was exactly. It was one that, and those are the only 2 I remember. I went to the one the last time and we lost. The All Blacks turn up at Ellis Park. It's not like they come there as a joke, you know.
Yeah, and they'll turn up in Cape Town because they've got a ton of supporters here as well, which is very annoying. I mean, it is. But we love the All Blacks, to be fair. Like, it's the greatest rivalry, in my opinion, like almost in sport. So
yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, to just the closing segment of the podcast, we're gonna just spitball some players from each side that we think are key players going into the Rugby Championship. So we'll start off with the box quickly, because obviously everyone knows we are Sappers Unscripted. But just off your head, 3 or 2 box players that you think really need to step up and be instrumental.
Firstly will be Malcolm Marx. We need to get that prime Malcolm Marx back. I know Bungi's out there as well, but we know how vital a Malcolm Marx is for us. And when he's at the races, he can carry so many players that might have an average game. So he's looked good again in that second game against Ireland, but now it's time for him to be consistently the Malcolm Marks that we know and love. I'd go Andre Pollard. We have to. Seeing how he fits into the system. I don't know if you saw Tony Brown said, if you look at the under-20s, Andre Pollard, just like we mentioned in the podcast, if you go back and see how good he was there, he wants that Andre Pollard. That's a threat to the gain line as well. Not this guy that looks like he's standing in the pocket every fucking time he gets the ball. Like, it's so annoying. Okay, so the guy that actually takes the ball up, he's a threat on multiple strategies, if I could say it like that. And then probably whoever's going to play in that 8th man position. We know it's a vital position for us. Obviously, you could say like, yeah, but it's a bit Ergisneyman or our props or whatever. But whoever takes that 8 jersey, they need to step up. Like, it's massive. You know how good our Lucy's will be. Always needs to be, especially against the likes of New Zealand. I mean, look at how good their Lucy's is. Always quality. Our boys have their work cut out for them. So whoever takes that 8th man position, vital.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think Ulrich has to start at 8, Springbok off the bench, and Ulrich just has to have that season he had for the Bulls where he was carry after carry after carry after tackle. You know, I think this was Ulrich's best season in a Bull shirt, arguably Player of the Year for the Bulls. Like, he has a conversation there. So he has to step up, take his opportunity, be physical. Obviously, I agree with Malcolm. I think Eben, look, obviously he's always very 7 out of 10 type guy, but I'd like to see quite a few 9 out of 10s in a row from him. I want to see Eben in that World Cup final, and then I want to see the Eben who also played in that Sharks Challenge Cup. Yes, the Challenge Cup. In that final, he was immense. So yeah, just obviously those guys massively important, and obviously we want to see Pollard be the Pollard we know. I mean, remember when he was bouncing people as a 10? Like, that's the Pollard we love.
Damien Dillon at 10.
Literally. That's why I even played 12 for the Bulls at times. But like, moving on from the box, we'll go to our fierce rivals, the All Blacks.
I'll give it to you.
Okay.
I'll give it to you. You can start.
Sure. I think obviously Ardie Savea, I mean, it's straight up like when he has a good game, you know, he kind of lifts everyone else around him, and he has the ability to win games on his own somehow, or keep them in it at least. He's just so important. I think if D-Mac's going to be the 10, he has to step up. You know, I think there's a lot of improvement for him at 10. And if that is the guy that Scott Robinson is going forward, then I think D-Mac has to have a fantastic rugby championship. If it were me, like I said, I would probably play Bowden at 10. But then again, you don't know if Bowden's going to be there next World Cup. So is there a point? Does that make sense? You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I think D-Mac, he's probably going to be given the 10 jersey. Got to stay consistent there.
Yeah.
And then
probably going to be one of those guys that you need to play a good handful of games in a row, get them confident in the system. I always use it as an example, the way Borthwick has done with Underhill again. Even though he struggled a bit at the start, he really found his feet when he saw there was confidence in him to stick out with him and say, listen, okay, we'll back you. That's kind of what needs to be done with Mackenzie as well. So you just trust the process with him because you know how good he can be.
Yeah. Do you know which scrum offs are available for the All Blacks? Or all of them?
Yeah, TJ Perenara is back, and then that Cortez Ratama, he'll probably, and I think Finley Christie should also be there. But I'll just add with you because I agree with those two. But the one standout for me as well will be obviously both locks, but especially Scott Barrett. We saw Mario Itoje had an absolute field day against the All Blacks at line-out time. So they need to get their jumpers right. They need to get that line-out sorted. And that starts with Scott Barrett, who's obviously the main guy there. Obviously, Tuipulotu is big as well. But Scott Barrett being the captain as well, under this new management, new coaching staff and stuff, he will be vital for them. He's also the enforcer. So being the enforcer, the main guy at the line-out, and the captain, there's a massive responsibility on his shoulders. no more Brody Retallick and Sam Whitelock, so it's kind of a whole new combination for him to work with. He doesn't have the two guys that he's always played with. So massive role on his shoulders when it comes to these games. That's otherwise I just agree with the other two that you made.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's pretty straightforward. And then we move on to Australia. Who do you see being like that guy that can ignite something, where we can get a Wallabies that you actually respect?
I was going to say Fraser McWright, but if I'm not mistaken, he's injured and he's missing the first 2 games of South Africa, which is absolutely massive. Like, I rate him so highly. I think it's one of the best loosies at the moment, like on form, and he's been like that for a couple of years. Otherwise, I don't even know. I do not know. It's tough because they've got a new look as well.
Literally,
I would say Noah Lolosio. Because we've seen the way that their backline's playing now against Wales. He was crucial to them. I don't think he necessarily had the best games, but obviously they have to back him as the 10 now. They can't be switching with Noah Lolosio and Ben Donaldson now the whole time. They need to back one guy, get them ready for the system. So I'd go with him, maybe the scrum half as a combination, and then, I don't know, one of the props. Do not think that scrum time.
I think a big player for me, and I don't know if he's even been selected because I haven't seen the Aussie team or the squad, is Valentini. I think, like...
Oh, Rob Valentini, yeah.
Like, literally, I think he reminds me, he's like, if he had a bit more oomph in him. Like, he has oomph, don't get me wrong. Like, he's a good carrier, but he has the ability to be like a Artie Surveyor, like, if you get what I'm saying. Yeah. Similar type of player. I just think Artie's got a bit more fights, if that makes sense. Like, there's something a bit more within Artie. But I really do see a piece of Artie in Valentini, who I believe arguably can be the Wallabies' best player on the right day. So I think he would be important in the loose forwards.
They've got a quality side. Like, it's so tough to pick the standouts when you have a team that's kind of so new under a new coaching staff. Like, obviously we've seen the All Blacks for a while. They've still got kind of the same team as they had in the World Cup, but now with Australia they've got a new 10. Andrew Kellaway is there with I just forgot his name, the fullback. Tom Wright, is it Tom Wright?
Yeah,
who's been very good. Like, that combination work. I know is not Balakoon. Dalgunu.
Oh, and
he's suspended.
Is it Kurabeti? I think Kurabeti's back as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I thought he retired after the World
Cup.
No,
he's back. I think I saw today he's back. So, and they were like, they brought him back just for Mapimpi, but like Mapimpi probably won't play, So.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. The thing is, it's tough because I'm not going to lie. I don't know too much of the Wallaby team at the moment off the top of my head. For some reason, I'm going really blank at the moment. But the whole team just needs to step up. It's a new coaching staff. I can't single out certain players because they've played 2 games against Wales and they've rotated a bit. Like, I don't even know. Are they going to play Tate McDermott or are they going to play Nick White? So that's the thing. Like, I don't even know who's going to start. I'll just say Taniela Tupou as a big game because he's going to be the prop. And obviously, you can't get dominated at scrum time. So he's going to have to step up. So we can just move on to Argentina.
Yeah, let's move on to the Argentinians. And I just think, and we was talking about this before we came on, but there's just the obvious people that step up. I mean, that step or point up that just block. I've gone blank. That just stand out. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So obviously, like Pablo Matera, Crema, Chocobares, like, these oaks are all super important for Argentina. And realistically, we know Argentina can one day beat the All Blacks in New Zealand, and then the next they can lose to the All Blacks by 50. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
they are a team that loves conceding points. They like scoring points as well, but they do concede a lot of points. So when you talk about the likes of a Crema and Pablo Matera and stuff, they'll be crucial at the breakdown, getting those steals actually to give them the ball, and they'll be vital in defense to make the tackles. Like, those are the boys that usually put in the hard yards. I would say maybe is it Carreras, the 10 that plays. He plays in the Premiership as well for who played in the EPCR final? Can't even remember now.
Gloucester.
Yeah, he plays for Gloucester. He'll probably be there to control the flow of the game. I'm not too sure. And then like a standout one for me is the same as I said with Daniela Tupou. Like Argentina used to be this physical team. Like you couldn't just move them. Like when they had the likes of a Karevi, not Karevi. Who was the captain that
Creevy, just
Creevy,
yeah.
Like when they had those boys in their prime, they were such a tough team to play against when it came to their physicality with the maul, with the scrum, all those type of things. But in the past couple of years, they've just got blown away at scrum time. And with these teams that really feed off set pieces, South Africa will monster you in a scrum. The All Blacks' physicality looks absolutely like the best they've ever looked when it comes to scrum time. And they obviously feed that backline off the set pieces. That's kind of what they push for. And then obviously the way that the Australians play, like if you get blitzed by them physically, you're also going to have a long day on the field. So they front three and their bench, like it's going to be vital for them not to get dominated physically. They need to make that game, like, I want to say keep it tight, but as ugly as possible at the same time, like to kind of just stay in it. Yeah.
I mean, literally, because we know traveling to Argentina can be a bit of a bogey. I mean, sometimes we see they become prime All Blacks in Argentina with the way how fluid they become in their attack. And then, like you said, when they travel to South Africa, they always know how to make, like you say, make it messy. You know, I remember when I think we had to win the game by like 50 odd points or something like that, and we couldn't even do it because they just made it so messy. That's
also when Franz Steyn missed a 5 meter out touchline kick, and I was so angry because I was like, okay, this is our confidence. We're just gonna drive over, and he kicked the ball dead. It was right next to the touchline, and I couldn't believe he tried to whack it. That game that he played 10 for the first time, 79 years.
I think now we just head into the week of building up to the squads and team announcements. So we'll bring all of that next week. But enjoy the rest of your Friday or whenever you listen to this. And that is Safa's Unscripted out for today, and we will see you soon. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Bye.